Welcome to Between the Rig, a podcast hosted by Pushbox CrossFit. We're all about fitness and bringing you direct opinions wrapped in humor and a touch of, did they really just say that? We aim to help you understand more about coaching, gym ownership, and what it takes to get the most out of your fitness, mindset, and lifestyle, both inside and outside the gym. Let's get into it. All right, welcome back to Between the Rig, a podcast hosted by Pushbox CrossFit, and we got the boys in the house. And to my right, which is a little new for us, because I'm usually in that chair.
You are.
We got Coach Josh. Say what's up.
What's going on, guys and ladies? Sorry I'm on the wrong side, but I'm usually on that side. So if I look this way, it's just natural.
But I'm seeing you from a whole new angle, and now I'm actually seeing the part of your hair.
I know.
It's nice. Yeah.
You look nice.
He looks good.
I like this side. Yeah, the bandana air is fading away. I'm still going to wear it, but it's fading away. I finally got my hair the way I liked it again.
You look good.
Thanks.
You do look good.
I find myself taking you slightly more serious now.
I know. I take myself more seriously now, too.
I walked in the gym yesterday, and I was like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Like, who's this tall, handsome man?
Well,
Yeah,
speaking of handsome men, and that voice you hear if you're not watching the YouTube video is, like we were saying earlier, I'm not sure what to call you anymore. Your family and friends call you Adam.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people call you Dr. Adam.
Some.
But now you also have Coach.
I do.
Welcome to
Yeah.
the team, buddy.
Thank you. So,
What do you want to
back
be
at
called?
it. Just Adam's fine. Yeah. I'm not like a, titles kind of guy. I'm just collecting them over time, so,
right.
but I'm not like real flashy.
I like Dr. Coach Adam.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it flows off the tongue.
Does it?
No, not at all. But
Well, I'm going to completely
Seems
use
clunky.
that.
Yeah, seems
because
clunky.
when I put doctor into the episode title,
Yeah.
YouTube went bananas. So that algorithm completely works in my favor.
It's getting fed into all the people that are like, searching for whatever, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you're just, feeding that.
So
that
Dr.
system.
CrossFit Coach Adam, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden we're hitting all the check boxes
You
on
should like
Google searches.
100,000 views. Yeah.
All right. Well, we love talking about fitness, and just a couple weeks away, we have the CrossFit Open upon us. And so that's what today's going to be about. We're talking all things CrossFit Open. Changes over the past few years, maybe a little bit of the history of it, what to expect, why we think it'd be a great idea to do it for your first time, issues you may run into if you've done it in the past and you're maybe losing a little steam or motivation, maybe you're battling back from an injury, what's that mindset going into it, just kind of let's talk about it all and see how it naturally flows here, a few points we want to bring up here, and let's see where the conversation takes us.
Sure.
So I guess the first place to start is, what is the CrossFit Open, especially for those who have no idea what the hell we're talking about. And to simply put it, it is a online worldwide competition that started in 2011, and the primary goal of it is to funnel towards the CrossFit Games, which in CrossFit they deemed the fittest man or woman on earth. So I always kind of compared it to almost like the Final Four bracket. You have a lot of teams, and then kind of whittles on down to the champion. And so the cool thing about the Open is that you can be at an affiliate gym, you can do it in your garage, you can do it in like the backwoods of some place that barely has service. Anyone can do it, which I think is kind of a cool special thing for it. But the end goal for this is to figure out who advances on to quarterfinals, to semifinals, and then eventually the games, which is what, if you just tune into the games and see the top 20 or 30 teams and the top 40 men and women and all that, they started with the Open, and that's how they got there. They kept on passing through. And I think the Open means different things for different people. And I think that's important to talk about, because not everyone, statistically speaking, is going to be in the top 40. We probably don't know a lot of those folks. So the main question we usually get is, what's the point? And so I just love to kind of just talk about in general, pass off to some of you guys, like, what does the Open mean to you? Are you excited for it this year? How many years have you done it? Things like that. Josh, we're looking at each other.
Yeah, I'll start. The Open for me is more or less just kind of, I mentioned it's like a journal, just to kind of test my fitness every year. I started it in 2017. I actually started CrossFit in 2015, but I started right after the Open. So I started probably the last Open day, and then I was like, oh, what is that? That's kind of cool. And then 2016 came around. I wasn't, really there. I wasn't 100% into CrossFit yet. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't 100%. And then 2017 was my first official year, and I think I did 2 workouts, and then my back blew up, and I was like, oh no. So I look back on it, and I'm like, that's the 5th percentile. That's not good. Not good at all.
Do you remember like what made you finally do it? Were you being pushed by others? Were you naturally piqued of curiosity and it was your idea?
I mean, probably a little bit of both. I mean, I'm a competitive person, and I just want to kind of put myself out there. And you kind of mentioned that it's like everyone starts at 0, and I think it's what's kind of really cool about it. It's really the only sport that I can think of that like allows everyone, no matter what, to start on a fair playing field.
Yeah.
Baseball, you got to be drafted. There's always there's these political standpoints that you got to kind of work past. But this doesn't matter who you're friends with, who like we all start in the same spot. And we all kind of get weaned out as the workouts progress. So I think it's really cool. And I have no, I'm very logical in the fact that I'm not going to make it to the top 40.
That attitude.
Well,
Yeah.
let's be real.
I have a question. But at that time, when you first signed up, did you think that you had the opportunity or the chance to make it?
No. My LS was just like I knew, and you may know old school Alex, from Riot. He was kind of the guy. Bergdahl, yeah.
Shout out to the
yeah,
Bergdahls.
Yeah, if he's listening,
Yeah.
He's probably a big reason why I started to join, because I was like, he was the guy I always kept on chasing.
Yeah.
And the gym, and I think we all have a person that all right, this is who I'm either want to aim to be like or get past and stuff like that. So I just want to kind of see where I stood in him in this whole thing, and I liked the idea of collecting these different workouts and putting them all together and just seeing where I stand against not only the gym but the world and my other friends that were also doing workouts and stuff. So
Yeah.
it was just a cool opportunity just for everyone who does CrossFit to kind of come together and just kind of like nerd out about it for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So and now I look back on it and just see the progression and then degression of stuff. Like last year I had knee surgery right before. So
And no excuses. All right, knock it off.
Hey, I still signed up. I still did the workout.
Yeah,
and
no, I
then,
remember that.
But it wasn't the results that I wanted. But it's nice to kind of go back this year and like, oh, listen, well, in 2023, I had surgery. That's why I dipped. And 2020 obviously was, the bad year. And
I'd like to kind of recircle back to that when we kind of go through some of the stuff we want to talk about. Then I'm going to go over some questions that were sent to me to go over. And one of them was essentially like, hey, if knowing you're battling back from an injury or just something that occurred in your life and you suspect, like we can't predict the future, but you suspect you're not going to do as well, is there a point to do it? So I'd love to kind of come back to that because I think we've all I had a knee thing that like blew up in like the last workout of one of them, and like I wasn't able to finish it, so I didn't have a completion with like that was hard for me mentally because I'm kind of a completist on things. Like I was like, oh, but I remember like on video I just collapsed because something just like gave out. I was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And so it's important to kind of recenter that mindset and the why behind it. Dr. Coach Adam, when did you it'll catch on? When did you start, and what does the Open kind of mean to you?
Oh man, I did the first one, I think like the very first CrossFit Open. So this is like the years of like the ranch and shit like that, where like I think I owned a CrossFit DVD, like what was it called? Like Every Second Counts or something,
Nice.
Like I was like in it.
DVDs.
Yeah, first of all, yeah. And so I went into it, like that was my question actually, of like, did you think you were going to go anywhere? I legitimately thought I was going to like make the CrossFit Games, CrossFit was pretty new. I was pretty fit, and it was such an eye opener of like, oh, there are people out there that are, one, take this significantly more seriously than myself.
Yeah.
But two, are like the fitness world is vast and this like massive thing that at the time was only in the United States. So you didn't have the worldwide kind of functionality of it. And so I got smashed in the ground, and which was great. Like it was, it was like an ego check. It was like, oh yeah, like you think you're fit, but like you're not. Yeah. But I really loved it because it was like something that I was like every year it was like, oh, I'm training for something, And so I think on the way over here, you and I were discussing this. It was like, it's good to have something like this on your books of like, what am I preparing for? Why am I doing the things that I do? General fitness is definitely a really great reason for these things, but it's just like a checks and balance kind of system of like, hey, I've been doing this for a year. Why not, test myself a little bit and see how these things go. See if I'm more fit than last year. See, like, I think Josh has mentioned this multiple times. Are you moving the needle? Is the needle actually falling backwards and you're like degressing, you know?
Yeah.
Is an injury plaguing you? And that's why you're actually doing these things. You know, is it time to, you know, get help and, you know, work on preventative things as well? Something that you brought up, that like 3 to 4 weeks, I think the first Open was like five.
So the first Open 2011 was 6.
6.
It went to 5.
Brutal. So,
there's been a lot of changes, and to be expected with anything that's trying to like get its footing and figure out the most efficient way to do things.
Yep.
And then we've seen a lot of changes over the season with the Open. But dude, there was nothing quite like just 5 weeks of sheer stress and panic.
Yeah, it was tough. Something that I remember about that is I was doing workouts like 3 times, because you had an entire week at the time. It wasn't just like Thursday to Monday or whatever, Thursday to Sunday, and you had to have your scores submitted. You pretty much, I think, had like an entire week. So you would have people that would take like 3 days off in between. They'd do it again. They'd see that their score, you know, didn't go as well as they'd wanted, and then they would like take another day off and then do it again. And one of the things that
Guilty.
Yeah, same.
I've
and
done it multiple times.
I got done with the 6 weeks, and I was like, oh, I'm actually less fit. I've missed training days. I feel horrible actually about like where I'm at mentally and physically. And then the next year, actually, the second year, I was like, I'm not doing that. I'll maybe repeat a workout once, but I'm not going to do the like, I'm going to rest in between. I trained the same way. I would maybe take a rest day, like almost like it was already planned kind of situation. And then I would do the workout again to see if my score would become better. Or also, could I game it a little bit differently? Is this not a like, I'm not fit enough, but is it I came out too hot in this area and I didn't do this as well as I should have, you know? So that was also, it was a learning experience.
We're doing a great job selling on why you should do it. The panic attacks. Decrease in fitness.
I loved 5 weeks, but the day
ago.
before the workout comes out, it's almost like Christmas Day. You're like, whoa, what's gonna come out? I get super excited, and
everyone's like, what do you think it's gonna be?
I love that.
game.
That's one of my favorite parts of the Open, is just like the anticipation of the workout coming out and thinking about what it's gonna do, and then thinking about the strategy of it. And back on that, the only time I'm gonna ever redo a workout is if I knew my strategy was just like, that was wrong. Let me do it this way. So,
well, don't you have like what's his name, fuckface, who like
fucking fuckface?
I like just throw that in there. But he like sends out cryptic like Instagram, and people are just like, oh, what do you think it's gonna be? And it's like,
just in case you ever do get traction in this podcast, we'll just initial DC. Are you referring to? Okay, I know you're talking about. Just in case he's like, I really love the way this podcast is going. Wait a minute, they're talking about me. So I'm just gonna keep playing the selfish route to get this podcast to blow up.
Definitely.
I'll
stop calling him.
There's like the antagonistic role, and everyone needs the villain, you know. And but in a weird way, like, I think that's also what brought some people together. You're like, oh, this announcement and this guy.
Sorry.
Damn it, Josh. No, this is a constantly streaming podcast. No, clear your throat. And there's something about that, like, to come together and be like, oh, he's now wearing a leather jacket and throwing jump ropes at the screen. Anyway, I can't wait to do this and die. You know, there's something about that. And I think I really want to kind of stress those things, the things that you don't see on paper that people may not appreciate. It's like, no, you shouldn't just do the Open so you can be ranked against other people in the world. Some people love that. Some people don't care. It's coming together and doing this thing officially with people and like-minded people and your friends and your family. Like, it brings something different out in you. And we were kind of talking about this even when we did the marathon row. I would hope to imagine what I noticed everyone talking about post that was not how awesome the rowing was or the skiing was or the biking was. It was, oh my God, I can't believe you guys went through the time to connect those wires together. And it was so different to see the boats on the screen. And now I can actually race against people. And did Trish go out of her way to buy new microfiber towels for your sweat? And the boxes were neat there. And there was it was a vibe. It was a thing. It was. So
as the community, right? Like, we talk about this constantly. Like, the community of CrossFit being this beautiful thing that everybody can be involved in, and everything, you know, there's the infinite scalability of it. So, you know, my mom could do CrossFit if she would get off her ass and do it, but like, she's not going to. Shout
Yeah.
out to my mom. But,
Yeah.
it's
shout
one of those
out.
things. Like, you could, like, everybody can do it. Everybody can be part of the community. And it's this really fun thing, and that's what the row marathon was. That's what the Open is also. It's like, you get to have this really enjoyable moment.
Well, there's this phrase I like, and it's CrossFit is for everyone, but it's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And I think that could be obviously applied to a lot of things. It's like, hey, what CrossFit is from a community standpoint, a methodology, what it's designed to do for health and wellness, it's for everyone. Like you said, it's infinite scalability. Now, is that just your cup of tea? Like, you could probably argue there is a certain type of, I don't know, type A or slightly off
Type
the
2 fun.
rockerness. Yeah,
Yeah.
type 2 fun that like CrossFitters have collectively. But at the end of the day, like, man, I think a lot of people know they're not going to the games, but they're still showing up Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and maybe not Thursday in CrossFit, but Friday and and you're doing this thing, and we just put out even a survey, and I think it should be another great topic for another podcast. But a lot of the things were, this is just so fun to be around, and it's like so good for my mental health, and the people, they mean a lot to me, and so I think it's okay to put a little stress on these events, even if it's a local CrossFit Open to a 5K you're signing up for. It's, if we take the importance and meaning and significance out of big things or little things, it's just days become very blurred together, and meaning gets lost on things. And so I don't want to expand this out too much and be like, do the CrossFit Open or you lose all meaning of life. But it's a slippery slope when you start to talk yourself out of doing things when it's kind of real. I think it's okay to be nervous. It means that you care about it, and you want to see how well you do. So I think those are kind of, let's just kind of segue into, I think, some of the things we hear maybe to not sign up for the CrossFit Open. And I think the number one thing that stands out that I hear that I just fucking hate is the $20 thing.
Oh my God.
Well, what's the point of signing, and it's $20. And I'm like, oh, you mean as you live in and I'm going to speak to this from specifically our location, one of the fastest growing cities with the highest income, and you're getting 5 Starbucks every day, and you are able to afford that. And again, it's a slippery slope when you talk about other people's finances, and I'm not here to push any buttons, but we know, or I strongly suspect, if that is your number one reason to not do it, you are not comfortable holding the mirror up and taking a hard look at really the fact you are nervous about something, which is very human. That's very okay. But let's get into that. Is it because you're scared by the number attached to your name, like your 17th or 17,000? Is it you never tested well and you don't do well under pressure? Like, what is those barriers and those anxieties that people feel, and can we help kind of sift through those for them and kind of put a better focus in the priorities of why we're doing it? Because maybe someone listening has a different panic than I do, but we also have a different goal in mind about why we signed up for the Open. So what is your kind of comments to either that one specifically at $20, or what are some of the things that you hear as a pushback when you speak about it to friends or fellow athletes, or as a coach to athletes in class?
Yeah, I mean, for the $20, if you're honestly struggling and you're on a budget and you really cannot afford the $20 and you're like, no, seriously, then I get it. And
That's kind of you, Josh. You'll pay for them? That's sweet of you.
I mean, if you need to, sure. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not opposed to it. It's like me buying somebody a beer, right? I mean,
In the city? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you're also that same person that I see you going out and you're like, buying beers and you're buying the lattes and you're going out, all the extra stuff, and it's like, and it's not about the $20.
No. Right.
It's about something else that you're just hiding behind this, false excuse. And then, maybe it is just because, you're afraid to actually put that number in. I know I'm nervous every single time. I mean, when I go into the Open, it's almost as like that same nervousness as going into a competition.
Absolutely.
It's...
I'll say more sometimes.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, because, now you have not only the eyes in the comp, but you have everyone can just look at your name. You can talk about it. There is a number by you, and there's and you've been training all year for this, and, everyone's afraid of failure. Everyone's afraid of failure.
That was the first thing that came to my mind, actually.
And no,
So how would you define failure, though, in this situation?
Well, like, I think
I'm
people,
curious,
because
right?
they see themselves not doing as well as they think they should have done, where, like, again, this is back to my very first CrossFit Open where I'm like, I'm going to make the goddamn games, and then just getting destroyed. It was fear of not doing as well.
I would say that's the mind. Wow, both of you.
I'm so sorry.
Clear your throats before
You're
signing
next,
off.
so,
Yeah,
so,
no, I can feel it. I'm like, oh.
But, like, this is the, like, I'm putting myself out there. Yeah. I'm showing what I have become or am made of or whatever you want to put on it. And is it anxiety or is it excitement, right? Like those things feel the same.
Very similar.
And so maybe it is actually excitement, and maybe you need to rephrase it for yourself as well.
But how many times do you hear, and I'm referring to myself and like the voice in my head about doing anything different, what is usually the response after you do that thing that kind of scares you?
That was great.
It was great.
It was fucking great.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I'm gulping the Kool-Aid.
I climbed Mount Baker once, and I was afraid to do it, and then I was afraid doing
I'm
it.
fine.
And then I'm like, I'm not doing that again. So yeah, if that's the case, if you did the Open, you're like, you know what, that's not for me. It doesn't bring me happiness. I don't want to do it anymore. Then that's another good excuse.
It's kind of like how I was
Yeah.
raised with the dinner table. It's like
Yeah.
you need to try everything to have an opinion on it before you say I don't like that. And if you truly don't, fine, don't. So I think you need to try this. And I bet most people, it's really hard to have an absolute blanketed statement across all people who just handle things differently. But I would bet a decent amount of Josh's money that I don't gamble. That most people would be like, wow, that was actually different than I thought. Or my ranking was kind of what I thought it was going to be, but I found myself caring a little less. And the mere fact people were cheering my name for, honestly, it's kind of like the whole 15 minutes of fame thing. You get to be the star in your movie. People are cheering you on. And we're going to do the best we can at push, like set this up to be like a vibe. I'm going to tape the floors. I want to create it almost like our competition back was then. Like, let's create the environment if we're going to ask people to show up and do something. But I just want to, if you're nervous, please sign up, because most likely there's a lot of those people who show up on that day of class anyway and does the workout. So if you're going to run on the side street parallel to people running a 5K, but you didn't sign up for it, you don't get to say you did the 5K. You don't, and I would imagine you also don't feel as accomplished and proud that you signed up for this thing, you trained for this thing, you went through the nerves that everyone else, like, you didn't go through the steps to say, like, I did this.
I'd say the nerves are different, right? Like you don't have that, like,
You can also
I'm
quit
actually
halfway. You're like, I'm just
You
going to
could-
go
yeah.
get coffee and run off the side of the
stop,
road.
go to the
2.5K.
bathroom. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but
it's not the same thing.
Yeah, so we understand their stress. We relate to it a lot. But you're not failing. There's nothing to, like, you did the work. And I'd like to imagine most people didn't have your mindset like, oh, I'm going to win the fucking CrossFit Games. Are people ready to just know Dr. Coach Adam in the world? Most people know they're not. I think that stops them. But if you already know you're not, then do this thing. Find out, because I think for a lot of people, this is kind of their Super Bowl. It's the beginning of the CrossFit season, but it's probably one of the main or only things that you're going to do that gives you a metric that shows, have I improved? Has the CrossFit community worldwide, there's a lot of analysis out there about, oh, we noticed like in last year, 23.2 A and B, that the U.S. seemed really dominant in the strength portion, but kind of a dumpster fire in the burpee pull-ups and shovel run. The rest of the world, like Europe and Asia, actually crushed the aerobic capacity, but did not perform as well in the strength. I think those are fun little tips, because, like, what does that mean about not just your local gym, but how do maybe we in the U.S. prioritize strength versus conditioning or things like that? So I know not everyone nerds out to the data. So if you don't nerd out to the data, but you plan on showing up on a Friday anyone, put a fun little outfit on and take the stress away by almost making it seem like a local in-house comp, and just have fun doing that. But be part of it. Okay, so let's talk about maybe some movements, and I think mindset going into preparing, and based on how serious you take it and whatnot. I found a list in the history of movements you can probably expect. There's a lot of opinions on, was that a good open? Was that a bad open? Was that a good test of fitness? Was that not? I think we need to understand, if you're going to take, in 2011, there was 26,000 people signed up. And at its peak was, I believe it was 2019, 2018. Was it 2018? If I'm looking down, it's because I have my phone out for all the stats. I couldn't write it down. 416,000. So that's a pretty big jump.
Almost 400,000 more people.
Right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. And so if you're trying to get down to the top one, you need to do a lot of different varieties of things. In the open, you're trying to balance, how do we push through the fittest people, but also make it accessible and fun and doable for the average Joe, Gen Pop, right? If we're going to keep preaching, do it, it's great, it's great, we need to make sure it is doable, right? And the greatness is maybe your mindset and the how the gym set it up and the vibes and all that. You're going to see, and historically speaking, you're going to see a lot more movements that are accessible to people, that you can find at your local affiliate, and have a better opportunity also doing if you had in your like garage gym. But you do need to test out things that allow you to numerically separate people out. So I think you're going to see a lot more capacity-based thing. You're going to get the pitter-patters up. I think there's 41 different movements over the course of the history of the Open. Only 3 were 1 rep max, and one of them was essentially for max load, but complex. Mm-hmm. And usually they're always after a buy-in of sadness, right? Because a 1 rep bench, 1 rep dead does not separate out 400,000 individuals because you have specialists out there and CrossFit are generalists. Mm-hmm. So 13 years of the Open, we're going on to 14, but we don't know the workouts this year. Can you guess 3 movements that have been in every single Open? And I'll give you a hint. One of them is not always the same variation of that.
I'm gonna let you go because I already know the answer to this question.
Ah, damn it! I told you.
Yeah.
I mean, pressure on you, Josh.
I know. I'm pretty sure you see thrusters almost every year.
Thrusters is one of them. It's been in the competition every single year.
Some kind of pulling. Chest to bar, pull up. Is that one of the different variations?
Toes to bar is 3rd on the list at 12 of 13, and chest to bar is 4th on the list with 11 of 13 years.
Okay.
What is the one thing that gives you welts that makes you just so angry?
Oh, fuck, man. Yeah, double unders.
Double unders.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Especially like high capacity double unders, like, today's training, have 100. I looked at it, I'm like,
Yeah.
Don't want to do this today. But I was like, I got to do this. I know we're going to see it in the Open.
Yeah. Yep. And the other movement that you've seen different variations of it, but has been every year, is the muscle up.
Yep.
So let's just look at the top 5 right there, right? You have thrusters. It's full body, it's squat and vertical pressing, right? I mean, add some pop to it, don't stop in the middle, but it's full body, and it brings out a lot of sadness. Mm-hmm. And we need to also test that about people. Double unders, there's skill, but it's also, I think, a very low-hanging fruit for the programmers to be like, hey, you're all in the same round, but you can, like 79 versus like 42 reps is only maybe like 6 seconds. But at least there's a gap there. You're probably not going to get that big of a gap on a bigger barbell movement. And so we need to separate out. And I think it's a cheap way to be like, not in a bad way when I say cheap, but like do this, do that, and let's run 100 double unders. Mm-hmm. Someone's going to not land on a tie, and it's going to be easier to rank people out. But then the next 3 are all upper body pulling gymnastics. And I think we need to understand this is really, you've seen this trend in the semifinals and games, that I feel like the vertical handstand walk, push up, all that has become more high skill demand, maybe lower volume, like wall facing now, handstand walking. You're seeing people having to kick up to a box, do a pirouette on it, and then come off. But you're seeing high volume upper body pulling. Mm-hmm. And that's something you just need to prepare for. So if you've been that person who's like, oh, I love the Open. Oh, it's such a stupid test. Man, like thrusters, double unders, and muscle ups. I'm like, nope. They were pretty much telling you that every year it's going to happen.
A lot of people don't have the muscular endurance for the high gymnastics moves.
Yeah.
Like they're good with a thruster because it's like something that they can kind of work around, compensate for. But when you get somebody on a muscle up or a barbell or not a barbell, but a pull up rig for a long period of time, they usually fall apart. And that's where they like have to come off the rig, break, whatever. The top games athletes, they're not having to do that, right? Like they have that ability to string those things together multiple times.
Yeah,
I'm one of those specialists that specialize in the strength. I think every year that I've looked at when there's that either 3 rep max, 1 rep max. I think last year was a thruster. I've always been in like the 95th percentile or up in that. Yeah. But then we look at where like the high volume gymnastics goes, and it's like 60, 65, and that's usually what crushes me. And like I can do a lot of the gymnastic stuff, like handstand walk. I can do a muscle up here and there, but it's that, like you said, the endurance part. I think it was like maybe 2017. They had handstand walks. I was super excited for it. But then they had like, you had to do like 60 handstand push-ups before it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to crush this handstand walk. And I never even got to it.
No.
I never even got to it. And that's usually how they're going to,
And you're going to see that trend. We're talking about in the car. You're not going to see a muscle up first.
No.
Because we can't say, hey, we want 400,000 people to feel safe. We want to feel accessible to do it. We want them to justify the $20. But by the way, here's 15 muscle ups at the gate. You're like, so I couldn't even, it's not a 20-minute AMRAP. it's a 20-minute spectacle of watching other people
looking
do
at
it.
Yeah, me looking at the rings and going, I wish I could do
So
a muscle up.
Most likely, again, we can't predict the future, but we have a pretty good ability to, via the data, is you're going to see a heavy barbell or a complex lift at the end of fatigue. I think now that it's 3 weeks and not 5, it's also a way for them to get that heavy lift in. So it's not like 4 scores, but in 3 weeks of time and kind of logistics and setup. You're going to see probably high-end skilled gymnastics movement at the end of a workout. We saw that in last year's repeat. Here's rowing. Everyone can do that. Wall ball. Everyone hates them, but most people can do it, or at least like huck it up there, right? Then we had toes to bar. Now we have clean. My grip. And by the way, now we have 20 muscle ups to end on. So a lot of these open AMRAPs are like air quote AMRAPs.
Yeah.
It's like good luck getting there.
Yeah.
But again, they're separating out and they want you exposure of different movements. And I think you're probably going to see that trend. If it's pull-ups or chest to bar, it's probably higher volume, maybe out the gate. And if you see muscle ups, it's kind of like, oh, so you passed the first couple levels, good for you. Let's just really make sure now you are truly the fittest or fit enough to be in the conversation, because you could have just been a specialist.
Yeah, I'm going to sneak something in here real quick. But,
sneak it.
And this is actually coming from a clinical standpoint where we see a lot of people injure themselves with high gymnastics movements like this, especially under fatigue, where they're, the main joint that I see a lot of is shoulder, right? Like, so pull-ups, chest to bar pull-ups, especially toes to bar, things like that are like, oh, I've been doing a whole bunch of other things and now I'm required to sustain this movement for who knows how long, depending on
minutes under fatigue,
for
or
sure.
9 minutes under,
And then they're just not prepared for those things. The preparation or the preventative side of like CrossFit is not the best. But I would say we try to get those things in order for people. Newer people usually tend to be less good at them, and then they try to push themselves a little bit further when you really need to kind of like know your body and be like, oh, you know what? Today I'm competing and I don't have 20 pull-ups in me. I should, maybe be like, okay, I'm going to take a break in here. Your score isn't going to change. It's, like it's better to be healthy, live to fight another day kind of situation.
So now that we know you're a doctor and a coach, I'm now someone who's like, all right, Adam, I'm listening to you, Josh and Aidan. I think about signing up for the Open. I don't have these movements, and I'm newer. Should I kind of just throw up Hail Marys and hope I get over the bar? Or should I not even bother signing up for the Open? I think we're probably going to hear a lot of that. Or is this where you recommend, hey, sign up, but there's a scale division.
There's a scale division, right?
Fundamentals.
Yeah,
like there's different tiers.
Yeah.
And that's
not like there's a ton of things lately due to my own injuries or, you guys know my history, but like that I'm like, I'm going to scale this today because my body's not ready for this. I view it from a different lens now than I did when I was, 2011 is a long time ago. And I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Well, just going for it probably got me to where I am today, of some injuries that I've had that where I'm like, I probably should have been more prepared for these things, especially at a high volume or a high intensity like that. So.
Yeah, and I think the conversations in the literature and the intelligence of what we knew back then and how we approach things is not what it's like now. I think there was a lot more. And I think some of the issues that CrossFit deals with, and this is a whole different side tangent, is just I think they accidentally have dug themselves in certain holes based on narrative or marketing and based on when you started. I did some of the 2011 workouts, but my official one was 2012. And if you're even someone who was back then, you understand. Like when I say pukey, the puking, insane-looking clown logo that used to have. There were people who were a lot more like, your workout's my warm-up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that kind of bravado back then, which I think kind of hurt certain elements of CrossFit and people. I think there's a lot more intelligence and just different mindset about how to have these conversations and navigate through. Sign up, because signing up for things make it real. When it's real, it means something different. We approach it differently. Now, let's understand how to go about it once we've signed up. You should scale. By the way, you can RX week 1 and scale week 2. You're not like locked in to one or the other.
Especially
now,
if you
it
don't
fucks
have
with
that
your ranking,
yeah.
but like you may not care. I think we need to scale. Let's just call a spade a spade. If you're going to need to scale a workout, you cannot have a mindset or an ego that cares about your ranking and panic over it because you're not going to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But like, take the panic and anxiety off of your plate. You don't need that. I want you to have a great experience the first time through. And then hopefully that opens up some like intrigue of, oh, I want to get better. Like, man, you're right. I'm in. Like, help me get to that next level.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the idea of the scaling, and especially if this is your first year even in CrossFit, then yeah, do the scaling option. I mean, I think the unfortunate part, the way the Open is set up, that you can get 1 rep in RX and you will rank higher than if somebody completing an entire workout in the scaled. So, I mean, yes, I agree with like, you should always do something safely and don't do anything you know is going to injure yourself. But I'm also like, if you don't have toes to bar and like there's like a workout where you do like rowing and then there's this toes to bar, like, why don't you try to get your first toe to bar? And even if it is your taint swinging, sloth doing it, like that gets you a rep. Now, is it something that we'll train for? No, we won't train that way. But this is a test. Let's see where you stand. So I agree, scale when you need to scale, but maybe you do the workout and to the point when you try to get your first toe to bar, or first muscle up, first chest to bar, try to send it safely.
Yeah.
But then if you care about getting a good workout, then go do the second workout in a scale just for giggles.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think to add a little more clarity, I think if you're someone who knows that you use 2 green bands and a purple and a coach holding your hips to help you do a pull-up, then no, don't send it and flail for a bar muscle.
Sure.
If you're someone who has toes to bar, even if it's like strategically I'm going to do quick doubles and like you've showcase that you have the capacity to do at least these movements, maybe not in high volume. Well, at least we can chip away and add a different strategy. Then, yeah, maybe the adrenaline of the room, and that's the fucking beauty of this that I can't stress enough, that maybe won't happen for everyone on such a movement like that's so sexy like the muscle up. It's always the movement people refer to in a good or bad way when it comes to CrossFit. But then it's like, sure, go for it. I think you need to have that athlete awareness and IQ of like, where am I roughly based on all these other workouts we do at our local affiliate? Do I scale most of the time? Do I RX most of the time? When I do, is it because of certain movements or modalities and weights? And then just assess that situation. And that's why we're here as coaches. We can help you with that.
Yeah. I agree. Like, how many times have you done a competition like PR'd, right? Like, the environment really plays into that pretty heavily.
So I want to talk about some of the changes, because a lot of people don't want to go online and read all the details. Some people who are just getting into it for the first time, and some people who just like have CrossFit tattoos on their butt cheeks. They just like drink all CrossFit Kool-Aid all day, every day, right? So some of the biggest changes are, and I want to talk about this as an athlete and as a coach and as an owner. The biggest change is now, because we talked about the Open, how to get to quarterfinals. That's the next stage. Last few years has been the top 10% advance on to quarterfinals. And then I believe it's the top 10% of that region, which numerically will shift a little bit, but goes on to the semifinals. And then based on where semifinals are, like I think South America is the top 2 men and women, but North America, West and East, you get to send like 5 each. So I think based on how many people in that kind of area dictates that, but that makes your top 40. Now, they just increased this for the first time this year. The top 25% advance on the quarterfinals. What are your initial thoughts when you hear this?
I mean, I love inclusivity and being inclusive, but at the same time, as you know, I've been trying to make quarterfinals for a long time, and that used to be the 9th percentile, and I've always been a little bit close. You know, my closest year was in the 89th percentile. I mean, I was right there, and I just missed it. So you know, I'm happy that it's going to be easier to do it this year. But I'm still going to be shooting for that 9th percentile.
Yeah.
And, you know, will I be happy if I make the quarterfinals? Sure. But would I be satisfied with myself if I made it but didn't hit that 90? Probably not. You know, because I still, like I said, I use my Open as experience as my own personal journey. And my journey is I want to be in the top 10 percentile. So I'll still do it. But I'm a little bit like, I'll be a little disappointed.
It's an asterisk.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. But at the same time, is like, you know, if you're excited about it, I don't want to take that away from you and your experience and saying, well, if you made it and you're super excited for it, that's great. That's your journey. This is my journey.
Yeah, I'm going to interject. We're going to offer our opinions on this, and it's not to, some people are going to agree and some are going to disagree, and the intention behind it is not to align with certain people or offend other people on this. This is just kind of our perspective from subjectively, but also from the outside looking in from like maybe a business standpoint, an affiliate standpoint, logistics standpoint. So if you're kind of like, hey, like our intention is not to be offended, but I would just say like, why does that, just look within, why does that offend you if we disagree with you? And maybe is that a you thing, or did we accidentally all three of us have bad bedside manner and how we just phrased it? Maybe knowing us, but
maybe a little bit.
You know, I have no dog in this fight for the most part. Like them moving it from 10 to 25, I don't care. You know, I do care. I think like we kind of had this like off mic conversation about it where I was like, are you going to make it to the semifinals if you were the 24th percentile, you know, or in the 24, you know, probably not. You know, the fact that like it's just kind of it's CrossFit being a little more inclusive, which is totally fine. I have no, again, I don't care.
There's one avatar of an athlete I can see this working to their favor. It's someone who is of a high level, who is coming back from something, that all they need to do is get one muscle up. In, for example, like last year's 60 cal row, 50 wall ball, 40 toes to bar, 30 cleans, 20. That one jumped a lot of people.
Sure.
And now this extra time, they're usually 99th percentile, and they sneak in at like 23rd because of that. Now that gives them time to heal up and showcase what they usually can do. That's only the one kind of person I can think that is, because even if they do it halfway wrong, if you barely snuck in without injury, like that is your capacity and fitness level, there's nothing they're going to show at semi or quarterfinals that's going to be like, oh, now my wheelhouse, even harder shit.
Sure.
Yeah.
That jumps you to the game.
Yeah.
Semi,
And, like with a 4-week gap, like, are you, you know, what are you just masking something? You're, you know, like it's.
My initial thing was I feel like this was a business decision financially.
For sure.
Because there was, based on the numbers of last year, because you're increasing it another 15%. The projections based on last year's open registration data would be about roughly 48,000 more athletes, which if they all, because by the way, if you make it to the next level, it's another $20.
That's what I was wondering. I didn't know that.
You keep paying.
Oh.
So this would be an additional almost just under 2.5 million.
I don't know if it's necessarily a money thing though, because I think you brought it up. Like,
I hate $2.5 million.
What was it?
I don't need that shit.
No,
Like-
no, I'm rich inside.
Like, so 48,000 times 20 is what? That's what, somewhere 80.
Roughly 2.5 million.
We just
$2.5 million.
Yeah.
But yes, but when you look at it as like professional sports money, like that's a drop in the bucket. That's like, that might be to help you like maybe pay for marketing.
No, this is like
you know.
this is where I think a lot of the conversation needs to have, because a lot of this data is not out there because they're not like publicly owned. Where's this money going, right? And so, is it going towards your own pockets? Your meaning the upper tier owners and people. Is it going back out towards the athletes? Is it going towards affiliates? So I don't think this is maybe like the only reason, but I think it's hard to not also be curious about that.
Sure.
So I am hoping it is not just for that, because as a fellow athlete, I like that you brought up that you're holding yourself still to the standard. I feel like it's like a little participation trophy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like,
It feels like when I'm trying to get Micah to like shoot it in the goal, and he's like standing here, and then I move the goal closer to him just so he then it feels
better,
feels
Yeah.
accomplished, and that's kind of what I'm just like. All right, well you can't make it at this point. We'll move it to you. That way you feel like you have accomplished what you wanted.
I would say why I don't like it the most is through the lens of being an affiliate owner. For anyone who's done quarterfinals, logistically, it is so fucking stressful and it's so frustrating. There's 97 rules to read. There's 17 cameras you got to set up. You got to show the measurement. And now, let's say you have like 10 quarterfinals athletes. Now you have like 30. Now we got to cram that in within like 2 days. It's just
And
harder.
have people video shit. It's, yeah.
Now I think the vibe would be dope.
Yeah.
Oh, for
So
sure.
I think that's a positive. That'd be so fun.
Yeah.
But it makes just another layer of things to that. Another change is there is more time between the open and quarterfinals, which I think is interesting. I think it's you can kind of recover, prep, plan. However, it also, like you said, I think you said earlier, it extends out like weird training because you're taking this thing so serious. You're like accidentally not doing 19 other things.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys had thoughts on that. This is the longest time between the two that are going to happen.
I wonder why. It's kind of that where it's like, why are
Yeah.
you guys, extending this out? Has there been concerns from CrossFit athletes? I think that might be a good question for
That's a good point.
our local Grace, because she deals with the athletes a lot. Are they concerned now with, injury due to overtraining, overuse through the open part of things, but then also jumping right into quarterfinals?
One thing I was thinking about is this is also the first time that so I'm 37. This year I'm turning 38 in March, so that'll be my 38th birthday, how it's registered in CrossFit on my athlete profile. Masters, if you didn't know this, starts when you hit 35. So the traditional open is 18 to 34, and then every 5 years after 35, 39, 40, 44, all the way up to I think 65 plus. And then it's just like, if you're still going, that's amazing.
Nice. I'm in the 40 category this year.
Hey, there you go. So you can qualify for quarterfinals in the past in the general open and in your age group specifically, because some people qualify for their age group because it's a smaller pond, but not the overall. However, if you double qualified, they were different workouts and at different times. Now it's the same workouts.
Gotcha.
And I think I like that. Yeah, I'm more so like that. I think logistically, you can just focus on one thing. If you qualify for both, you don't need to wonder clearly when I double qualified, I knew I had a better chance in my age group, not the open, but there's still that thing in me. I'm like, but I'm curious just how I do.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm like, this is so much stuff. And now I'm asking Trish to be there and help out. And I'm asking friends and hey, can we not go on this trip? Because now I got to do I think you got to kind of check your priorities. Was it just hey, I made it. Fuck yeah. Okay, let's go to Costa Rica now.
Yep.
Or is all right, I'm hunkering down. Get the kid out of the house, turn my phone off. We're sleeping in separate rooms. I'm going to now
again, I
still
think
not
this,
go to semis,
yeah,
but I'm
again,
gonna take it
exactly.
serious.
I think that comes back to what are your expectations? In the reality of it. And this kind of comes back to oh, they're moving it from 10 to 25%. It's are you going to actually make semifinals? Do you actually have a shot at going to the games, right? Also, is this how you make money in your life, right? Does this support you and your family financially?
Which reminds me, we're still looking for sponsors. If anyone of our 16 listeners wants to contribute, that'd be great. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I mean, so if you didn't sift through all the literature out there and the changes, essentially the quick hits of the changes from last year to this year is 15% increase in total athletes qualifying for semis. And quarters. Sorry, the overall amount of people can go on to the next level here. There's now 1 month between individual open and quarters, which is usually typically 2 weeks longer than we've previously seen. There's 3 times as many masters athletes at the games in 2024 than 2023, 3 times as many teenage athletes, and then there will be 10 times more in-person competitors for the adaptive. So I do think they're expanding outward to not just the top tier people we see. We get this exposure and we get to create these moments for everyone to have their I'm here too.
Yeah.
Right. The landscape looks a little different. It's not going to all be at the same games. There's the Legends is going to be where the Masters are and things like that. I think that might just be also, this could be a whole separate thing. I need to research more. I'm sure it's just a lot to showcase everyone going on. It's probably easier. It's probably cheaper to set up. You get to focus more on just certain categories. I'm sure when you want to watch the All-Star game, you want to watch the people most people probably know. A lot of people can't name all the 50 to 54 plus, but we need to give but they can't help their age, and they also want to be crowned the fittest in their age group, and they definitely should be able to. And 100%. So let's just create a better landscape for them. I want to, because we have a handful of minutes left, let's get into some questions we've gotten so far from people here. Considering the quarterfinal changes, what we just went over, should competitors change their approach to the workouts, if at all, this year?
No, I mean, I always view this as a test, and when I do a test, I try to go the best of my ability. I don't, maybe my strategy changes based on the workout, but not based on the overall where I'm going to stand. I'm going to put my head down, do the workout, and wherever I land is where I land. So,
yeah, I would agree with that. You've been technically preparing for this all year. That's the whole idea of training and doing CrossFit and things like that. So show up, do the workouts, let the chips fall where they may. You know, if you feel like, kind of like we talked about earlier, if you feel like there was something where you could have been better, or you wanted to change your strategy and do it all over again, like, go for it.
I would say the only way would, like, you maybe want to change your strategy if you're one of those people that think that you might be able to get to the top 40, where you're like, all right, I'm just going to make it to the 75% and just do enough until I can, like, make sure I always get to the next stage. And then when it's time to really showcase yourself, then go for it. But that's not going to be.
No.
I interpreted this question from how should I approach the open workouts now that it's easier to get into quarterfinals, and I would tend to agree with both of you. The only thing I would say maybe switch it up is two sides of the coin. If you're someone who you're like, even with the top 10%, you're either really close or you know you'd get in it this year, I think you can kind of chill out a little bit on the stress on repeating things 14 times. So maybe there's your own ego of like, oh, I could have done that differently, and that maybe took me from 94th when it could have been 95th. I would say, don't put your body with that wear and tear.
Oh, yeah.
Go be with your friends on the weekend, like recover your body so you can hit the next one, and let's learn from kind of that thing. Or if it was like, oh, that was such a stupid way that I did that, and that was blatantly going to be the reason why I didn't make it, okay. But I think for the most part, if you're someone who knows you're going to be in, you can actually relax a little bit, which may be hard still for those type of people. Like for me,
Sure.
I like repeating certain ones. I'm like, damn it, I learned something. But I just got to be like, okay, just chill out. Don't like snap your wrist trying it again, and all of a sudden you screw yourself further. One of them was if you're, and I want to wrap back because you brought up you had surgery last year. There are a few people who have dealt with injuries or personal things that I think they have this mindset that's like, well, I can't unsee the number attached to my ranking and my name. I fear I'm not going to do as well. That never feels good, just in general. Should you even bother signing up, or how do you approach this mentally this year if you are choosing to sign up and you're going to, kind of get over that mental hurdle, but maybe you drop in ranking, but it's from this impact, not just like I decided to eat more on the sofa this year and take it. It's like, no, I dealt with some shit. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously, if you're hurt, you should always talk to your doctor and your professional, maybe even, Adam here, and see if it's safe for you to do what you're trying to do.
Let's say you are now safe.
Yeah.
And
so,
you're coming back, but your fitness is just decreased because you couldn't do squat cycles and running because your knee or your back or your shoulder.
If it's something that you normally do, I did it. I came in the 60th percentile last year. And it's not where if I did that this year, I'd be not happy with myself. But last year, I can look back on that in maybe 5 or 6 years and look at it and like, oh, 60%. Oh, that's the year I had my knee surgery. But I still did it. I still participated. I still had fun with all my friends in the gym. And it was still a good time and a very memorable experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think still do it, right? Like you're going to see a increase, obviously, because you're not injured anymore. But it's just going to that's now your metric, right? Like your 1 year to the next with an injury is completely different than, like you being healthy the entire time for X number of years over a course of time. You just now, like, it's almost like hitting the reset button. It's like, well, I had this injury, life wasn't going so great. Now I'm back at it. I now have this baseline metric for me to see my improvement over the years.
And it may be less, but I think you still be surprised. And it's slow to people who aren't paying attention, but we are progressing individually and as a community, and the data shows that. So I bet even though you're less fit, it's better than actually what you would have been when you first started training and when you were actually less fit. So I think it's really just about perspective on that. Give yourself a pass. Don't be self-deprecating and beat yourself up. You didn't choose to rank lower based on poor life decisions. You got hit by a car, right? Or you hurt your knee, or something happened in the family and you had a lot of travel. There's funeral. I mean, there's so many real life stuff that sometimes it's like take workouts, take the open, take your health serious, but also know when, in the grand scheme, there are bigger things in life, and if they genuinely impact it, there's no reason to beat yourself up. It's just kind of like swallow that pill, go through the experience, like you said. And kind of, I guess, speaking of leaderboard, one of the questions was how do you interpret that, right? Like, and I guess I read that question like if you were 50,000th, what does that mean out of 8 billion people in the world? Just how the people signed up. So if that was just confusion on just the math of it, I guess my simple answer is however many people sign up. So let's say 418,000 people in 2019 or whatever it was, and you ranked 50,000th. It was of the people signed up. We can't predict what other people who have not signed for the Open would or would not have done.
I I kind of like this because since we deem the winner the fittest on earth, therefore I just go, no, like I'm in the top whatever percentage in the world.
Yeah.
And just,
not my fault you didn't sign up.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
fitter than you.
Exactly. Like, sucks to suck. But like, I'm gonna be like, well, that's, I'm pretty goddamn fit in the world, right? Like, and obviously there's people that are, doing crazy things and whatnot, but like, this is something that we can just kind of like jokingly be like, oh, you know what? I finished in the top, whatever percent of the world fitness level of people. And actually, it's probably pretty accurate if you think about like general population human beings. Like if you probably do CrossFit, you're probably fitter than, I don't know, I'll just throw out 90% of the people in the world.
Yeah. I think, go ahead.
I'll say my favorite time to look at the leaderboard is right there when I used to work out Friday morning at 5 a.m. I would submit my score at like 6 a.m. and then I'd be in like the 90th percentile. And I was like, yeah, crushing it. And then slowly as like Monday evening turn around, I'd be like, well, maybe not as great as I thought. So take the leaderboard with a grain of salt until Monday night. And then you kind of get a more realistic idea of where you stand.
Yeah, I also think you need to understand that if you're like 50,000th, it means something different if you're out of 100,000 or 400,000. Right? That's just like calculator math. But that can be very confusing for people. I had this conversation with one of our athletes who made quarterfinals. I was like, well, it's like my ranking, my number ranking was like lower, but the percentage ranking was like I think the same or higher. I'm like, well, you got to keep that in mind. Like more people are doing it. There's going to be more people who could be the same, better, or worse than you on any given open workout test. And so it's important to look at, I think, how many people have signed up and the percentile you're at. For sure. Because the number itself can change and look different, but be very misleading because of actually what it's taken out of. Like I was like 2000th, I'm just looking at my own thing, 2002nd in the world in 2013.
Good job.
But thanks. But it was out of like 76,000 people, right?
Yeah.
And then, right, in a year, I was 3,329th. So by that argument, I got worse by 1,000 plus people. However, I was actually a percentile higher than I was back then because of more people or doing it. Yeah. So I think you got to know how to look at the numbers. Yeah. But I think it is fair to assume that I'm sure there's some people out there who didn't know about CrossFit or don't do it that are just freaking fit. But we're probably, we and you are probably fitter. Yes. It's safe to assume that.
Yeah, I would like blanket statement be like, if you're doing CrossFit and on a regular basis, like your fitness level is probably significantly higher than the general population of the world.
Yeah. So we got to sign off in probably a couple minutes. Any last thoughts about pros, cons, tips, advice?
Go ahead. Just have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, just don't beat yourself up. And I very much beat myself up. If you ever worked out with me, I'm yelling at myself in the middle of the time, but short memory. If something doesn't go your way, just be able to like throw it off. Just any kind of sport, you got to be able to like, all right, get on yourself for a half a second and then just
be
put
a goldfish, man. Be a goldfish.
I think about that a lot. I think like I played baseball. You guys play baseball. Like that one play lasted X number of seconds. You have to be able to shrug that shit off and move on to the next one, because if you're dwelling on those things, it's going to get real bad real quick and you're going to find yourself in a deep dark hole, and we don't need to be there. And that's, this is a rant here for a second, but I think the community of the people that are around us are here to lift each other up and make this really fun and really exciting. And I think Trish and Aidan do a great job of that.
Agreed.
And so I think the environment that we put ourselves in like breeds this really wonderful thing that is the CrossFit community for everybody.
Well, I'll just take that handoff for my last closing statements would be, we are going to try our best each year. And I think we're excited for this year. Like I even got Trish found this purple tape instead of white tape to put on the floor. Like we will do our best on our end to create a vibe. And I don't want to say it's a warning for those who are still not, I don't know. They listen to this like that was fun, but like I'm still not committed. I don't really care about the Open. It is only 3 Fridays of the year, so there will be some schedule changes. We are gonna, we're gonna create heats. It may impact classes a little bit. Like we're doing that workout in class regardless, but it's gonna be some heats, and we are going to invest our time and energy and bandwidth into this to create this great environment. So for those few listeners who are like, wait, it's not just gonna be a normal Friday class. If I'm not signed up, what about my fitness? Like there's 365 days a year. You'll be fine. Or sign up be part of it, or don't sign up and still show up. But like, we are going to slightly adjust the flow of it. So please don't kind of have any huff and puffs about like, hey, there's extra warm up here, or please stay and support other people regardless if they're signed up or not. Like, be part of that community. Just like you said, be part of the uplifting process. Don't just kind of hit it and quit it because it's just like checking the box to like sweat, right? Like, this should mean a little bit more to you, hopefully, or at least on these 3 days. And if they don't, like, just forgive us for those 3 days. Do something between the open gym times, or take that as your rest day and hit another day, and then we're back to a regularly scheduled program.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. We gotta head out. You guys were great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks. This is left side of the seat. This is
I'm actually digging it.
not bad. Yeah.
It's nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
I accept. All right,
I'm in the
guys.
center.
Josh sandwich.
Yeah. All right. Fitness is neat. Support your friends and sign up for the open. All right. Toodles.